This evening on Money Matters, clouded by the fragile global economic situation due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the banking sector has shown a subdued performance in the second quarter of 2020, but remains resilient and continues to generate profit. As the economic downturn is showing signs of abating, the government announced in July a targeted extension for the moratorium on bank loans for those who either lost their jobs or had pay cuts this year. And we will find out more today the strategies in place to address and improve banks' bottom lines this year. Hello there, welcome to another episode of Money Matters. I'm your host, Zahir Kelvinong Abdullah. Fund managers have said that banks in Malaysia are Southeast Asia's most committed financial institutions in terms of helping business and the people during the COVID-19 pandemic. With up to 55% of the total loan book in the country under moratorium support as compared with neighbouring countries like Thailand with 33%, Philippines 22%, Indonesia 10% and Singapore at 10%. This moratorium has aided SMEs and those with bank loans to ride through these rough times. We have in the studio with us a representative from the Association of Banks in Malaysia, Datuk Chong, who is also Maybank Group's CEO for Community Financial Services. Welcome to the program, Datuk.
Thank you, Calvin. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Let's start off with asking you, what are the commercial banks' initiatives in tackling the repayment assistance to help those in need to basically sort out their financial difficulties?
Thank you for the question. Well, our member banks have been proactively reaching out to their customers, be it whether individuals or SMEs, to talk about the repayment assistance schemes that are available. The banks also have rolled out many initiatives, and at the same time, what the member banks are doing now are ensuring that the necessary information are available in all the touch points that customers can approach. And these touch points include, number one, the websites of the banks, the digital applications, the digital apps, the branches, the business centers, the call centers and help desk, as well as reaching out to customers via SMS and personal calls from the relationship managers. Member banks also take into consideration that our customers may not have the time during the weekdays to actually even come to the banks because of work commitments. So what banks have done, many of our member banks have done, is they're open during the weekends. So for members of the public who would like to visit the branches during the weekend and prefer face-to-face interaction, please check the individual websites of your banks for the information and when the dedicated branches will be open, the dates and times, as well as also visit the Association of Banks in Malaysia's website, where it lists out all the banks that are open over the weekends, including information on the repayment assistance schemes that are being offered by the banks. So you can see there are many multi-pronged approach that we're doing in order to ensure that we extend our reach to as many customers as possible.
So with the, you mentioned, with the banks opening on public holidays and the weekends, has the response by the public been good?
It's encouraging. Customers are now coming because many of the banks just started this clinic since last week, or branches last week. I think what is important for our customers is that when they come, it is important for them to bring the complete information that they require. That is to ensure that there is speedy processing in the application, and that basically we can complete the verification process quickly. And basically the documents that are required depends. So if you're an individual and you're basically employed, then what you should bring along is a letter from your employer, okay, or latest 3 months bank statement, or other supporting documents. And these documents are required, for example, if you had actually lost your employment, or as a result of the pandemic, or had experienced a drop in your income, then basically what would we require would probably be a letter from your employer.
Right.
For the SMEs, basically your latest 3 months bank statement.
Right. So looking at all these applications that has to basically be submitted, Malaysians being Malaysians, last minute rush for applications, right? So how can you ensure that they do not have this attitude of last minute, because this will overwhelm the banks as well?
Yeah. So I guess it's important. I think it's important that the message is that if you require repayment assistance at this point, whether you are individual SME, come to talk to the banks now. Yes, you can obviously come. We will not turn you away if you come at the end of September or in October. But what would happen, that may delay your application process, because if customers all come at the end of the month or in October, there'll be huge volumes, okay, and that could delay obviously the decision that you want, okay. And I think what we want to do is take away that worry from our customers, so that they can focus on other aspects that's impacted their business or their individual lives because of the pandemic, and they have one thing less to worry about.
Right, understand. The approval rate for the borrowers. What is the approval rate for the borrowers who have basically applied for the targeted repayment assistance?
Based on the current statistics that we have, the approval rate is slightly more than 90%.
90%?
Yeah, slightly more than 90%.
Do you expect it to grow as
yes,
things? Yeah?
We expect it to grow. So as more and more of our customers come forth, we will expect this to grow.
Okay. Yeah. Now, of course, looking at this, there have been some queries on whether there will be compounding interest at the end of the 3-month extension. So what if customers have already signed a previous agreement with the bank?
So if the individual customer falls within the severely impacted category, and that would mean if you are unemployed or you have faced a drop in your household income because of the pandemic, certainly they will qualify for the repayment assistance schemes or packages that the banks have. And this would include, if you are unemployed, that would mean that you would include an extension in your moratorium by 3 months up to December 2020. And if you are employed but you face a sharp drop in your income, then you can apply to your respective banks for a reduction in your monthly installment for at least 6 months.
Right. Okay. Looking at those who are not qualified, but would still like to ask for assistance for perhaps rescheduling their loan, so to speak, what is the process to ask for assistance from banks? You know, for example, the husband has a bank loan, but the wife contributes in the monthly installment, but you know, lost her job. You know, how can the bank basically assist in this aspect?
So, in an example that you've cited, certainly that couple, or the husband or the wife, can definitely approach the banks and to request for repayment assistance, a targeted repayment assistance. And I think from the perspective of the banks itself, we understand that our customers are impacted in many ways as a result of this pandemic. And while the banks have their targeted repayment assistance schemes or packages that are available, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. So it's important for the customers, be it individuals or SMEs, to approach the banks and share the challenges that you're facing, so that the banks can basically then advise on the right package that will fit the situation you're in, to tie you through that entire, obviously, this challenging period.
Okay.
For the SMEs, there have been many relief funds that have been available since April, and this has helped many SMEs basically, or will help many SMEs tie through this challenging period.
Right.
So for SMEs, be it coming for repayment assistance, targeted repayment assistance, or coming for these relief funds, please do so as soon as possible, so that we can assist you, and basically it can help you in terms of boost your business and tap the opportunities as the economy improves.
Right. Okay. Datuk, hold that thought. We are going for a break now, and when we return, we're going to talk more about financial planning. In the meantime, find us on Twitter and let us know your thoughts on the targeted moratorium, and we'll see you soon. Welcome back to Money Matters. We're speaking to Datuk Chong of the Association of Banks in Malaysia. Datuk, just adding on to what you had mentioned just now, would banks be forced to tighten their lending procedures?
Not really. I think each individual bank has their own credit lending framework, and I don't think this would change. And it's not changed. It will not change after this, obviously, repayment assistance, targeted repayment assistance scheme. I think you must remember we are all in the business of lending. So obviously, all banks, will want to support our customers, during this period, as well as post this period, to ensure that if businesses are viable, this is something that we want to do, especially for both individuals and SMEs.
Right. So, like you mentioned, banks are in the business of lending, but most of the losses are due to banks basically unable to charge interest on perhaps higher purchase loans and also Islamic financing, which ends in September. So basically, how would you advise, how would banks basically look into this?
Well, I think from that perspective, I think our focus now is the customer. Right. Our focus now is to address the targeted repayment assistance scheme for those packages for customers that require it. And this is when the moratorium ends on 30th of September. But having said that, I think we are encouraging customers to come now because we want them, like I mentioned earlier, we want to resolve the issue, to give them the peace of mind and put aside that worry so they can focus on other aspects to improve their lives or their business. That's one. But that doesn't mean that if they come after 30th of September, we will turn them away. The only thing that made, but for those that have actually applied for the targeted repayment assistance, and even after that period ends, the repayment assistance ends, and they still find they have challenges and difficulties in meeting their financial obligations, come and talk to the banks for additional repayment assistance support.
Right. So looking at how things are currently, right? Would banks require stronger guarantees of loan repayment and perhaps, I don't know, looking at in return to perhaps offer a lower loan to value ratio?
Like I said, all banks have their respective credit lending framework. For this targeted repayment assistance scheme or packages, every bank has their packages. Although we have some conformity in those packages, but they're also tailored to meet that respective credit lending framework.
Right. Going back to what you said earlier, a lot of people are kind of confused as to how banks have been saying that they would look into all these loans on a case-by-case basis. So is there a case-by-case basis, or is there a formula that banks basically can use in terms of the criteria on how to look at this?
I think if you're talking specifically about the repayment assistance scheme or packages, it's very clear. For us, the first category for individuals, if you are unemployed and because of the pandemic, you will get an extension of 3 months to your existing moratorium, up to, among other things, up to the end of the 30th of December 2020. Okay, right. So that's very clear. Right. For those who are employed individuals, but may have obviously faced a reduction in their total income or their salary, and they can come to their banks and request for basically a reduction in their monthly installment for at least 6 months. For those who don't even fall in any of these categories, they can come obviously to speak to their respective member banks, to our respective member banks, and there will be packages or repayment assistance schemes for this type of customers.
Right. So basically, it's also educating your customers. So yes. What efforts are being taken by the banks basically to educate your customers about basically, can I say, financial planning?
Thank you for the question. That's a good question. I think the banks have been proactively engaging customers, the public basically, in terms of the importance of prudence in terms of financial management, and this has been done even, Kelvin, before the pandemic, right? Way before the pandemic, and the banks work together with other stakeholders in the financial ecosystem to come up with financial literacy programs, and these are mainly targeted for students because obviously we want students to be educated in terms of how important it is in terms of financial discipline. But at the same time, our member banks also have the whole seminars, the whole road shows, the whole exhibitions where either they arrange or they participate in. And in these road shows, basically, we also educate the public in general in terms of the importance of financial management and financial discipline. to add on as well to your question, for every bank, we all have our personal financial advisors in all our branches and our centers, and these are they speak to customers directly. They advise customers in terms of their savings and investments, in terms of based on their portfolio and their risk profile, so that our customers get a better understanding and they can plan their financial future better.
Right. So obviously, with so much loans, possibility of all these loans being given out as well, are banks perhaps now looking into different ways to ensure that these loans do not turn into NPLs?
That's always at the top of our mind. I mean, maintaining asset quality is key to banks, and this is something that has been there before, obviously, this pandemic, and will continue even after this pandemic. So that's something I think all banks, all our member banks, is at the top of their mind and focus on in terms of asset quality.
So that, right? Okay. Looking at it further, I mean, many people are claiming to be agents of banks, basically, in terms of helping the rakyat or the man on the street or businesses to ensure that they say that, we can ensure that you have a smooth processing of their loans. Is there such a thing as independent agents for banks? So obviously you would ask people to come directly to the banks.
Yeah. So let me reiterate here again. Our member banks do not engage third-party agents to assist our customers or any customer for application, whether it's targeted repayment assistance or any banking services. And I would urge that all members of the public do not engage because of the fear of being cheated.
Right.
So there are many ways you can engage the banks today. You can obviously, as I started off mentioning, that our touch points include our branches, our centers. You can even do it online, and you can do it via email. So there are many ways. So no, we do not engage third-party agents for this.
Okay. We've just got to go for our final commercial break. Stay with us, and we'll be back shortly. You're still tuning in to Money Matters as we discuss further on the nation's banking system. Moving forward into what the government has said on the V-shaped recovery, what are the areas of high growth for the banks?
Well, looking at the numbers that have been shared, if you look at the GDP growth numbers for April, May, and now June GDP growth numbers, I think it's clear that there is form of recovery that's happening, and looking at the unemployment rate has actually, from a peak of about 5.3% in May, has dropped to about 4.7% in July. So that's been very, very encouraging for banks. And we are very encouraged in terms of we see opportunities across all the segments. But of course, there are segments, one or two segments that may take longer than others to recover. And that will probably be, for example, segments like the travel and tourism industry.
Yes.
But overall, I think we see opportunities. Like I mentioned earlier, we are in the business of lending. We want to support all viable business like SMEs, who are the backbone of our country, and we want to obviously do this, and hopefully that our customers can then tap the opportunities as the country recovers from this pandemic.
Right. The finance minister has said that the commercial manufacture of the COVID-19 vaccine will take time. So the nation's banking system obviously needs to stay robust and resilient in order to be ready for any future eventuality. So how can banks basically do this?
The banking industry is a key pillar to the country's economy, and banks have to remain robust, agile, and ready and prepared for whatever happens in the future. I think it's by looking at, as an example, if I might quote, I mean, the blanket moratorium that was given by the banks in the 6-month moratorium that will be ending on 30th September, this has demonstrated that basically the importance that the banking industry plays in ensuring that basically the sustainability of the economy, as well as, I guess, preservation of jobs, especially during a time of a pandemic like this. So I think for us, we are encouraged. Few months after the MCO, we are seeing business activities pick up. We are seeing customers that have been impacted during especially the early stages of the pandemic now being able to repay their loans. slowly being repaid by the loan. So I think now for the banks, our focus will be on those that require assistance. Hence the targeted repayment assistance schemes.
Right.
And that's where the focus will be for the banks. And I think that will be now till obviously to hopefully to the end of September, or if not further than that.
Looking at what you mentioned in terms of the business picking up, is there a backup plan just in case we go into another MCO, which will severely affect businesses and loans by your customers as well? Is there a plan in place for the banks?
Thank you for that question again. I think for us, what's important, what the message that we want to give our customers out there is that for those that have applied for or have applied and of course received targeted repayment assistance from the banks, and even post this repayment assistance period, and if customers still feel that they find difficulty in meeting their debt obligations or repayment obligations, right? They can still come to the banks and talk to us. I think we understand. Like I said, we know from the banking perspective that what has happened may not be in the control of our customers, right? This is unprecedented event. So the message is the banks, our member banks, are ready to assist and help.
My final question for you today would be, there's a lot of pressure on banks basically to help the people. So you mentioned that talk to your banks, the banks are friendly, willing to listen. But how do banks basically strike the balance, again, using that word balance, between responsibility to your shareholders and stakeholders and your social responsibility to your customers?
So I mentioned the first part. Yep. I think we understand there's multiple issues they are facing, sometimes beyond their control because of the pandemic. It's unprecedented. So we need to understand that as banks. We need to prioritize as banks. And basically, we need to decide what is critical and what is not critical. And be driven with the objective, depending on the occasion, to support the customers and to support everyone to survive. That's one. At the same time, we have to strike a balance. We are banks, and I think it's important for banks to ensure the stability of their respective individual institutions, as well as the financial system as a whole, so that the country can come out of this even stronger. So I think that's also important. So I think we will act responsibly as banks. I think we will balance, as you say. We will put our focus and priority is to ensure the stability and look after the well-being of our customers, of our shareholders, and the community at large. But I think the most important thing, our focus today, and back to the start of our discussion, is the focus is on the targeted repayment assistance for customers who really required it, and whether they may be individuals or for SMEs. The message is, come now and go to your banks and speak to your banks now if you require assistance, so that to smoothen that process, to quicken the application, so that you may have a decision quickly. And when you have the decision quickly, that part is then that part of your worry will be put aside, and you can focus on other aspects to build your business or focus on other parts of your life that has been impacted by the COVID pandemic.
Thank you very much. I think that message is very loud and clear from you. Thank you again, Datuk, for appearing on Money Matters. Money Matters will give way next Saturday to a special program on the Sabah state elections, but we'll see you again on October 3rd with more money insights that matter. Till then, I'm Zahir Kelvin Ong Abdullah. Thank you for watching and stay safe.